Hi there, this is Jane Archie again, and we are now in part 2 of what we were talking about before, helping you in the theory classroom. And this is 5 steps to fun putting the pieces together. We're on episode 3, and if you didn't get to episode 1 or 2, you can find the links below in this description. We're going to start with helping in the theory classroom, connecting the dots, because we have to teach concepts. The most difficult part of not understanding or passing the exam isn't just not knowing the vocabulary. It really is trying to understand what that question is asking, and that is context. And so we want to get from reading the recipe to actually cooking the meal, understanding the steps, but then also understanding how to put it all together. And so here are 5 steps that I think will help in the classroom to make that happen. Step 1, role play. That what if. I know that for some students, role play is so tough because they have to get up and talk. That's what we want them to do. We want them to get up and talk. We want them to practice professionalism and client communication. So you don't want to role play just a standard service. And I know that oftentimes we just tell them, well, you're the client and you greet them. And that's the role play. More than that is what needs to happen. You need to role play a disaster. Have a student play the rude one. Have the student play the allergic one. Or have the student have some hidden complication like lice. The idea is in role play, the student must correctly use vocabulary to explain the situation, how to handle it, or maybe how to excuse themselves correctly and go find the teacher, because that's what you're going to ask them to do. So this gives them practice in judgment, and oftentimes it gives them a lot more confidence. Once they've wrestled with that issue, like the rude customer, and trying to understand that talking to them may not be the answer, being kind and giving them as much honey as possible may be the answer, is going to be a very big confidence builder for your students. Step 2, show and tell. Only this is a little bit different than the show and tell we used to do when we brought like the fire engine to school to show everybody. This is really where we're going to talk about the major steps of a concept, but sometimes we miss the small pieces. So we're going to have the teacher do, you as the teacher are going to do some demonstration, and maybe you do stuff wrong. Have you ever misspelled a word on the board? And then somebody finally says, hey, you misspelled the word. And your answer to that is, I was just checking to see if you were watching. Well, this is that same idea. Show and tell would be, you would take the 4 steps of doing a facial or the 4 movements that you need and then mix them up and mix up the name and the actual action and see what students will do in order to make sure they're paying attention now and get what you are giving them. Step 3. Let's do a pop quiz. Oh my God, pop quizzes used to be the things that scared us when we walked into the room and she said, okay, take out your paper and pencil, we're gonna do a pop quiz. Why would you wanna do that? In this case, we wanna do that because we wanna make sure that we're going to check before that student really doesn't understand. We want to make sure they understand before they are confused. So I'm not talking about a pop quiz that's 10 questions or 15 questions. I'm not talking about one that's punitive. I'm talking about one that's simple, maybe 5 to 8 questions. And there are steps, for example, the steps that they should do to prepare for a chemical peel, or the steps that they should do to prepare for a color. And you put those down in some kind of different order, and they have to make the order correct. So the idea of a pop quiz is not to make them feel badly, but to make them feel successful in that they do understand not only the vocabulary, but the individual steps they need to follow. Step number 4, we're already there. I know that taking tests is oftentimes one of the things that students don't like to do. On the other hand, it's one of the steps that makes them prepared for taking that state board exam. And so I want you to know that going over all those answers is also not a waste of time. It's probably the best use of your time, because when we get to a wrong answer, that's the one everybody has to discuss. That's the one we're going to say, this is good because, and not good because. We're going to say why choice B should have been the answer, or why choice C is the one that really is what they call a misnomer. It's not the one that they want to choose. And so it really does expand their understanding. But doing that as a class doesn't actually select or emphasize who they are. It gives the opportunity for everybody in the class to see right and wrong questions and to discuss what the answers are. So practice tests are really important, especially coming up to the idea that they're ending their time and they're getting ready for that state board exam. I have one additional thing I want to say about practice tests. I've always made it a practice where students swap papers. And I know some students don't want anybody to see what they do, but getting comfortable making mistakes and then being well informed about what the best answers are sometimes makes the students pay attention more to what they do. So I do have the students trade with each other and check off what they're doing. And I also want you to make sure that when you're asking what's good as a choice answer and what's not good, you're not telling them as the teacher. They're telling you, why is choice B good? And then you're waiting for who's going to tell you what that answer is. Because the more that they understand what a good answer and a bad answer are, the more they're going to understand how to answer that state board exam. I have one additional thing I want to say about practice tests. I've always made it a practice where students swap papers. And I know some students don't want anybody to see what they do, but getting comfortable making mistakes and then being well informed about what the best answers are sometimes makes the students pay attention more. Let's talk about the last piece that I've always done with students, and that is I give them a project. What kind of project? Well, you can make all kinds of different projects. I used to do something like a project where they would have to create and evaluate something. But this is the step where they're using their critical thinking skills, and that's what you want them to do. So instead of assigning a paper, maybe you're going to assign a project where they have to design a solution to a problem, and then they have to present it to the class. And the presenting to the class of a project should not be avoided. I know that some people are afraid and some people don't like to talk in front of people, but the more that we help them with this social skill, the more we help them talk to their client and have that good communication skill, the more we are building that professional. That's so important. Now, you can have them create videos, you can have them create slides, you can have them show and tell a correct setup for a manicure, but this is something they're doing as a project, and they're doing it in front of the class to teach the class. Because I hate to say this, but oftentimes they don't often listen to what we're saying as teachers, but they listen to each other. So giving them projects helps them to understand concepts, and that's where we need them to be in order to pass the test. These 5 activities really do push them into the active learning and teaching others and being that mentor for the next person. Because I hope that you assign students partners when they have freshmen and they have a junior or senior, because those people do tend to help each other in understanding our world. The next time we talk, I'm going to have 5 more wonderful, fun tips for you to use in your classroom to help you. Thank you so much for joining us. This is Jane Archie from J Speak Solutions. Hope to see you next time.